Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment of the weekend show. Our discussion today is national independence and national identity. Nigeria is 59 years old. While we produce the most resilient and talented people on the planet, especially in areas of tech, music, art, and fashion, we're still facing most of the challenges we faced 10 years ago. According to World Poverty Clock, nearly 50% of Nigerians live in extreme poverty. We have the highest number of out-of-school children, lack of free press, trampled human rights, and terrorism still ongoing. So the real question is, why have we failed to change and develop as a nation, despite having so much human and material resources at our disposal? Joining us on today's program to discuss this, we have
with us the General Manager, Legal Services, Regulatory and Compliance, Board Secretary, NIMC, Mrs. Hadiza Dagabana. Welcome to the show, madam.
Thank you for having me.
We also have with us a former Special Advisor to Abia State Government and Strategic Management Consultant, Chief Ojukwu.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Also a pleasure to bring back our guest poet and singer, Chisom. Welcome to the political segment of the weekend show.
Thank you.
Well, we all know this is a live program, so when Chisom delivered her poem earlier on, our social media has gone agog. Everyone is absolutely in love with you and the work that you've done. So well done, and we truly congratulate you here on the weekend show. I'd like to start with you, actually. What's your ideal Nigeria, and what do you think some things are that leaders can change to ensure that we achieve this ideal Nigeria?
Okay, ideal Nigeria. Nigeria where, I could say for me, Nigeria where everybody is put into consideration. A Nigeria that carries everybody along can be ideal. A Nigeria that both the rich and those who are not so financially stable can get along, can get by. And then things that the government can do a lot. They could help us create more industries so those youths that carry out these vices could be employed. Because I mean, sitting at home, not doing anything, not that I'm encouraging terrorism or robbery or kidnapping, but we know the common saying, an idle man is the devil's workshop. An idle man is the devil's workshop. So employment, electricity, they could help out in the power supply. They should just have us in mind. When they're doing their system, they should remember the youth, because we are actually the leaders of tomorrow and now.
Thank you. Chief Agu, Nigeria is 59 years old, so happy independence to Nigeria. And most times we hear people saying, what's going wrong? Have we moved from where we were? But there's also the fact that we compare ourselves with countries like the United States, which is about 200 years old. But yet we've seen some Nigerians go from Nigerian universities to other parts of the world and become the best in their field. We've seen the resilience, like Osasu said earlier, in entertainment, technology, and the like. How would you evaluate our journey in the last 59 years, where we were and where we are currently?
Thank you very much. You know, this should actually be the major discourse in the country. How do we go to the future? Because anytime you try to cause changes and you don't go to the future, you remain in the past. Most things we do are actually in the past, and I will explain that later. You see, before independence, there was some bit of development, coordinated development going on. Then the independence came, and there was a boom. But unfortunately, after the Civil War, I can assure you that since the Civil War ended, no president or governor has ever tackled the economy as a system since the Civil War ended. And anytime you keep tackling the component parts of anything, they will never hold together. You must tackle things first as a system before you can go to the parts. Because even the phones that we use, the reason the phones we use work very well is because they have been designed to work together. But if you want to build a car, for instance, and you tell everybody to go and make his parts and bring, just like we have the ministries, if you tell them to go and do their job and come back, everybody will go and choose what he prefers to do. And in the end, it won't hold together. So if you're building a car and you tell the tire people to go and make tires and bring, they might bring tires of trucks for you. You tell the engine people, they might build the engine of keke napep, this small tricycle. And, you know, then the people who make the caboose can bring a caboose the body that is bigger than that of a trailer. And you have disconnected issues, you know. The potential is there, but what has been missing is the process of getting anything done. Because if you don't have the process, you can't be on track. When people say, is Nigeria on track or not on track, it's only when you have put the process in order. And the debate should be, what is the process? Because electricity, water, and road are not the process. Those things are infrastructure. Even in the formation of a brand new company or the building of a brand new economy, you don't start with building roads and so on. There are other things that come before them. These things are, now when you finish fixing your economy, then these things now become the product or the service, the output of the government after the system has been created that will enable everybody to do their own job. There's something that you said about the ideal economy. Our ideal economy should actually be an economy where everybody is achieving at his potential. Because if you see America and Germany, they drive everybody to achieve at their potential. But here, people are underachieving. And it's not just because they want to underachieve. Because most times, people cannot improve their productivity. It is the system, the organization they work for that has the capacity to improve their productivity for them. Because what you create is what people latch onto. That's the way it works. So we in strategic management consulting, we know how to cut the chase and just go to...
Interesting thoughts you've shared. I want to bring in Mrs. Dagabana. I hope I pronounced that right. One of the fundamental issues we look at when we're trying to build national cohesion and development is that of creating a sense of the Nigerian identity. I think a lot of times we see ourselves as Yoruba, we see ourselves as Edo, we see ourselves as Igbo, we see ourselves as this sub-sector tribes instead of as Nigerians. So given the fact that you work with the Nigerian Identification Management Commission, what do you believe, or what is your commission doing to further this advancement of the Nigerian identity, to propagate this message to all Nigerians?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I will even latch on what my two colleagues here stated. The young lady here, when you ask her, you know, her vision of what Nigeria should be, you know, all she talked about depends on Nigeria or the government knowing who she is. For somebody to reach his potential, government must know who that person is and what kind of support they need to plan for that person. For the young lady here, the way we are going in the country, we don't know, we estimate. We don't know the category of young people we have that are out of school. We don't know those that are born today, those that are going into primary school, how many primary school we need to build to have in place secondary school, universities or tertiaries to say, do we have adequate facilities to cater for this? Or health facilities? What do we provide for the population? We don't have that because we don't know who and who is in the country. So that is the whole concept of building the national identity management system, to make sure that everybody, every Nigerian is identified, and even the non-Nigerians that are residing in Nigeria and benefiting from and accessing so many services in Nigeria are identified and known to the government, so that government can plan effectively to make sure that all the resources and services reach the targeted persons that are meant for.
But what I also wonder what the achievements of your commission has been, because I hear a lot of Nigerians saying they registered for their name NIMC card many years ago and they still haven't received it.
Well, you got it there. You said NIMC card. Identity is not about card. Card is an added token. Once you are identified and you issued a unique number, the national identification number, you have your identity in your hands. The US does not issue a card. The social security number is a number. The Aadhaar in India.
But social security card, there's actually
No, it's a paper.
Yeah,
it's a paper card.
exactly.
So the NIN slip is a paper document that we issued when we print the card.
Are we getting the physical card? Because I say this because since I registered for mine, I think 2013, we've had 2 elections, and I now have my voter's card.
Yes.
And so it makes us question priorities, and not of the commission, but of the government generally, because if we can get voters' card, because it's important to get them into power, what's happening with prioritizing our national identity cards?
Okay, you want me to go? You want me to go into the discussion of card? I wanted to go outside that. Card is part of our mandate to issue card, which we will. Since it is in the act, we have to issue the card. But the priority for us right now is to populate the database, to make sure that everybody is in the database while we are issuing the card. And as it is, you made a valid point. You got your voter's card. Before election, INEC got its budget.
True.
It got its budget. NIMC never gets, we don't get our budget on time. So it's priority getting the funding to do that. And as it is now, we as we are in NIMC, would not be able to print that card because the card infrastructure need funding to expand the facility, or in other ways, we are looking at licensing other private sector participants. Mind you, the card that we issued cannot be issued by cannot be printed or personalized by every other printer you see. So people compare the card with the voter's card or the banking card. It is not the same. Yeah, you can say the banking card because there's payment on it, and there are facilities, about 8 of them in the country, that have the capacity to print the banking card because of the payment. They have all the certification. So those facilities will be able to print the national ID card. But then before they do that, they need to integrate with the system, and it will take them some few months. So we are in discussion to see how we are going to outsource that service. But when you outsource that service, these are private sector people. You have to pay them.
Sure.
Who is going to be at that cost? If government says, don't charge for the card, we are going to pay you, we are going to fund you to issue the card. First issuance free of charge, and we don't get the funding. So somebody has to fund the issuance of that card. So eventually, the citizens or the recipient of that card, if you want the card, because if you don't need to use the card, you don't need the card.
But Madam, what I'm hearing from you is that in relation to our discussion today, that NIMC is underfunded, and there's a lot that your commission can do to drive national development, to drive national cohesion. So when Chisom was talking about how ideal Nigeria, and a Nigeria of equality, a Nigeria where a poor man and a rich man are equally recognized as Nigerians, you believe if the government can, appropriate more funds to your organization, we can achieve the Nigeria of Chisom Stream?
We can achieve that. Interestingly, a colleague of mine just returned from a program organized by NITDA in Turkey, and all the presentation they had, I was discussing with her yesterday. She shared with me that all the discussion that happened in Turkey from the Turkey government agencies that made those presentations was all about ID. If you do not get your ID right, you cannot get anything right. Digital identity, that's what the world is moving into. You can't get your digital payments, digital e-commerce, digital government. You can't get anything right if you don't have your ID. So the core of getting the government to work is to make sure that they have a database they can work with.
Chief Agu, so speaking as a strategic management consultant, you spoke about the process. Now, we've had over 20 years of uninterrupted democracy. China, which is always in the news when we compare countries, they, for instance, set a 50-year strategic plan and say, whoever comes into power, we go with this. In Nigeria, for each new government that comes in, be it state, federal, we have this being changed. What as management consultants, I know there's an Institute of Management Consultants in Nigeria, what are they doing to ensure that this process is actually enshrined in a way that it's less about the parties and the people and more about the country when creating these policies which would ensure that we are actually developing as a nation?
Okay. you see, in India, they change governments from time to time, but the system remains on course. The same thing with Israel and other countries. That is because most of the good decisions do not come from the politicians. You see, in an economy, the job of government is actually to coordinate the use of the best knowledge in the system to get anything done. That is why in organized countries, any program you want to do, you actually, civil servants do not make policies in good economies. What they do is that the political class that actually makes the policies, what they do is, for anything they want to do, they organize a competition. Government can say, we want to do this and that. If you have the capacity to deliver, bring your proposal. As soon as you do that, you have cut out all the people who will be behind the scene discussing issues, even market women who will be making contributions to what they don't know about. For instance, now, if the president announces today that I want to have this economy fixed in 6 months, if you think you know how it can be done, bring your proposal. Then you see the noisemakers will move because they can't write the proposal. So, because what most people do is once they hear somebody they think is a thought leader say anything, everyone latches on it, and they start making so much noise. And I can assure you that in superior performance, the majority is always wrong. That is why innovation is only for a few. And anytime you want to do something, if you have a problem and you want to solve it, you should be looking for solutions that represent the future, not solutions that represent what others did in the past. Because that way you remain in the past. I had a meeting in the World Bank sometime when I was Chief Economic Advisor in Abia State. And the man tried to tell me what they did in America when they were in Nigeria's condition in 16 something. And I told him not to go there. I asked him to tell me what America is planning to do in future. So we will do it now before them, then they will be the ones trying to catch up. That's how development works. If you want to do anything, just look at where the circumstances are at that particular time in the whole world. Ask yourself, where is the world going to in that particular situation? Go there first, and then others will come behind.
You see, I agree with you, sir. You know, foremost economist Charles Oludo, who's also a member of the National Economic Council, said that there's a need to restructure. We can call it whatever name we want to, call it something else.
You can't call things any name you like.
So he said
Because
that you
the beginning
can,
of
so
wisdom-
a lot of people are scared of the name restructuring because they feel like maybe their state will not be able to carry their weight. So he said you can call it whatever name you want to, but there's a need for restructuring. Why? In Zamfara State, 91% of the population of that state live below the poverty line. In Lagos State is lower than 8.2%. So the needs of every state and each geopolitical zone is different. It's specific to that region, it's specific to that state. So how do you believe restructuring, sir, would help in achieving this Nigeria of our dreams? Because as a journalist doing this for nearly 5 years now, I feel like I've been talking a lot, you know, and I feel like I'm talking about the same issues day in, day out. And I understand you attributed to, yes, leadership. Leadership is very important in developing a nation, in setting the pace for progress. But what role, and do you think it's actually practical for us to restructure and prefer solutions that are specific to states, specific to regions, and that would actually work in our advancement as a country?
Anytime you want to do anything, first of all, like I said, you can't call anything whatever you like. The beginning of wisdom is to call everything by its correct name. In this, because when you call something by its wrong name, it will mislead you. In this country, we've been using so many buzzwords that people do not even understand. Value chain, value chain, value chain. But many people do not know that there's a chain system where the supply chain plays a role. The supply chain is the part, and then there are other chain systems inside that here. But everybody some people set up an office and they say supply chain, department of supply chain. All those things, they are the things that are causing the distortions in the system. Now, in strategic management consulting, which is actually the knowledge you need to fix an economy quickly, not mere economics. This is the only practice, because the solution to Nigeria's problem is a design job. You have to we've been saying different little things about what each person can do. In designing a system, you first look at the global thing covering the whole country. You fix that. Because you must have a national identity and a national vision before the other small states can start doing their own inside that vision. They can't go and have a vision that is contrary to the national one. No. In everything you do, you must come out with the global vision for the entire country, the national interest. In businesses, we call it mission statement. But in governments, you can call it national interest. Many people do not know what our national interests are. They don't. So people make noise, speak from wherever they like. And we are doing a lot of groupthink in this country. One group says one thing, everybody joins. And any place you have people agreeing on one thing so quickly, know that there's not much thinking going on there. Now, coming back to strategic management consulting. When you have a problem in an economy, there are many things you can do. After you have, first of all, you must diagnose what your problem really is. Here we assume it's corruption. But something breeds corruption, which means corruption is not the problem. Because if you have a problem, if you want to solve a problem...
So what's the problem?
If you want to solve it...
Interest.
Yes.
Exactly. So I think you summed up the answer to my question, because we're running out of time. You talked about knowing what our national identity is. You being able to identify that and answer it. What is our national identity? You said a lot of people don't know it. I honestly don't even know it as a Nigerian.
Because we have not crafted
exactly.
Something that we be cohesive, that we hold all of us together.
So let me bring you in here, Chisom. As a young Nigerian, they say the youth, we are the future. I believe
we've been hearing that.
We've been hearing that. I believe we're the now. So define for me what you believe the Nigerian interest should be, or the Nigerian identity should be. When you go abroad, what do you think you would want people to recognize Nigeria as?
Technically, as a country, we don't really have a perfect name in the diaspora. I mean, when Nigeria is mentioned, there's not really good things that come to mind, and that's not good for us. We need to change that. We need to rewrite the system. We need to create a better name. For the youth, I mean, I could remember back then in secondary school, I was the president of SOAR, Sexual Offenses Awareness and Victims Rehabilitation Initiative. I was the president, yes, I had a vice president, and then he brought something we could do to move our club forward. I am the president. I have the power to say no and enforce my own decision. But because I see that what he's saying is good, is true, and it can take us forward, I have to bring myself under subjection. It's not easy to swallow my ego and said, okay, for the sake of our club, let's do this. So when our leaders sit together, they should say, for the sake of Nigeria, let's do this. Not for the sake of the Yorubas, not for the sake of the North. Because this decision, because this law is going to take us further. Because honestly, we're not doing much movement as a nation. It's going to take us further. Let's do this. Let them drop their ego, let them drop whatever it is, and then agree on decisions that will help the youth, that will help children, and that will help Nigeria as a whole.
That's quite ideal.
It is.
I want to give you the final word, Ma, because you obviously work with the National Identification Management Commission. That's the ideal Nigeria. So what is our current national identity, Nigerian identity?
You want me to define that?
In
Yes,
your
please.
opinion,
In my own phase.
Yeah.
Okay. The Nigerian identity to me is we are enterprising, we hold our culture strong, and we are our brother's keepers. That's what we are.
I think that's brilliant.
That's brilliant.
Yes, it
That
is.
is brilliant. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time on today's program. We'll take a short break right now. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll be posting all these videos on there in an hour or two when the program is over. Also, share your thoughts and your comments with us. Share your definition of what it is to be Nigerian, what your ideal Nigeria is, and what you believe our current identity as Nigerians is. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, more on the Weekend Show. Don't go anywhere. Thought and debate. How important, how integral is debating to our electoral process?
I think debates are like a mirror that shows you the soul of every candidate. It tells you what the candidate has in store for the people. It gives you an idea of what to expect if you go out into the sun and you queue for that person. So that's basically what debates should be. The first time I saw a debate was I think it was in 1992. I think I was in JSS2, JSS3, MKO debating with Tofa. It was a very interesting debate. They were not exceptional candidates per se, but it gave you an idea of what to expect, of what these guys would do if we give them that opportunity. So I think debates are very important, but my problem is that it seems that Nigeria has witnessed a backward development in terms of debate. One would have expected that from 1992, when we had SDP, NRC, that would have created a very strong political culture of debates. Well, that hasn't happened. Right now, we have candidates that are debate shy. We now have to beg our governor or our president to come out and debate. And even when there's a debate, we have a society where people seem to have made up their minds already. So if there's a debate today and President Buhari comes to the debate and sings A, B, C, D, E, F, G, those who want to vote for him will still vote for him. Because our minds are made up. The things that make us decide to vote for someone are now so basic, so ordinary. It's no longer intellectual. That's my own opinion.